Garlic is first and foremost a dietary ingredient that is invaluable for people struggling with cardiovascular disease. This is due, among other things, to the fact that it exhibits hypotensive or blood pressure lowering effects. In a recent paper from 2020, researchers found that the use of garlic can help reduce systolic blood pressure by as much as just over 8 mm of the column of mercury. In addition, it can lead to reduction in diastolic blood pressure of 5.5 units. The authors of the aforementioned publication also indicate that such efficacy of garlic is comparable to that achieved through the use of standard antihypertensive drugs. Of course, by saying this, I do not want you to suddenly reject medications prescribed by your doctor, but I do want to show that as long as you are not taking medication, if your health still allows it, it is worth trying natural treatments first. What's more, researchers have found that the kind of blood pressure reduction we can achieve by using garlic can reduce the risk of various cardiovascular events by as much as 40%. Here is another short note. The mentioned effects applies primarily to people who already suffer from hypertension or are struggling with elevated blood pressure. Healthy people with normal blood pressure should not worry that garlic will cause them to reduce their blood pressure below the safe limit. I think that in this context, the use of garlic can really benefit many people, especially since, according to estimates, about 1 billion people worldwide suffer from hypertension. While we are on the subject of the cardiovascular system, it is also worth mentioning that garlic alleviates lipid disorders. By this I mean first of all that it lowers the concentration of triglycerides in the blood by an average of 12 mg per deciliter. This is a very important fact since high levels of triglycerides promote the development of cardiovascular disease. In addition, the consumption of garlic is associated with an improved ratio of high-density lipoprotein or HDL and low-density lipoprotein or LDL. Moreover, it is also worth mentioning that the compounds present in garlic protect the cholesterol circulating in our blood from harmful oxidation, that is, from changing its structure. By the way, it should also be noted that garlic exhibits anticoagulant activity, that is, it prevents excessive blood clotting. Again, this mechanism favors the fact that eating garlic improves our circulation. What's more, all these actions make garlic prevent atherosclerotic lesions, so it protects us from atherosclerosis. In addition, it can reduce the risk of stroke and myocardial infarction. When discussing the health properties of garlic, it is impossible to ignore its effect on our immunity. I think many of you know that garlic has strong antibacterial and antiviral properties. Experts indicate that the use of garlic can be an effective practice in the prevention and treatment of upper respiratory tract infections. For example, studies have shown that including garlic in the diet can be a good way to prevent the appearance of a cold caused by viruses. There are also indications that garlic inhibits the activity of bacteria responsible for the development of pneumonia. And here, a paraphrase from a book written by Ożarowski. I find it very interesting that the bactericidal effect on the lungs occurs when garlic compounds are exhaled. The effect of garlic on microorganisms causing infections of the upper respiratory tract, for example throat, bronchi, and lungs, are even stronger because after oral intake of garlic, the volatile sulfur compounds contained in it enter the lungs and are gradually exhaled with the air. Under these conditions, the bactericidal effect is much greater than in the digestive tract. Garlic is also an important product in cancer prevention. At the moment, scientists have published a number of research results that prove that consuming garlic can protect us from developing various cancers. I will now give a handful of information on this subject. In 2021, in the pages of the renowned journal Medicine, researchers published the results of an analysis of 11 studies, which proved that people who consume garlic have a 20% lower risk of developing colon cancer. In another study, researchers showed that by reaching for garlic, we can reduce the risk of stomach cancer by as much as 51%. In addition, experts from various countries have proven that garlic can also protect us from the onset of breast cancer, liver cancer, or lung cancer. As the literature shows, garlic is a product characterized by strong anti-inflammatory properties, and this fact was used by scientists in their research. Namely, they conducted an experiment in which they showed that the administration of garlic to people struggling with rheumatoid arthritis caused a reduction in inflammation by lowering the levels of pro-inflammatory molecules such as C-reactive protein, abbreviated as CRP, and tumor necrosis factor, abbreviated as TNF. Importantly, the study authors noted that garlic users experience a reduction in the intensity of joint pain and tenderness, as well as a reduction in swelling. These data confirm that garlic reduces the activity of rheumatoid arthritis and is worthy of being included in the diet of people with this disease. Garlic can also provide health benefits for people with unregulated carbohydrate metabolism. Here I am referring primarily to people with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. In preparing today's material, I reached two extensive scientific studies that showed that the use of garlic by people with elevated blood glucose levels can help lower them as low as 10 to 20 milligrams per deciliter. This means very satisfactory efficacy. In addition, the researchers noted that garlic makes cells more sensitive to the action of insulin, meaning that it elevates insulin resistance. This is also important for health, since insulin resistance is the substrate for the development of many diseases of civilization, and it is in insulin resistance that we should see many of our health problems. Garlic is also an ally of our liver. This is especially true for people diagnosed with non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Namely, in 2020, the results of a study appeared, which showed that in people with the aforementioned disease who consumed garlic, there was a reduction in liver steatosis. Moreover, there was also a beneficial reduction in the levels of liver enzymes such as aspartate transaminase and alanine transaminase. According to these reports, it can be concluded that garlic improves liver function in people diagnosed with steatosis of this organ. And at this point, I would like to add that 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 people in the world is struggling with liver steatosis. So it is a widespread problem which makes it possible for garlic to support the health of really many people. By the way, I will also mention that in the scientific literature we can find several papers that show that garlic can increase the liver's cleansing potential, as well as it can protect it from damage caused by, for example, alcohol, heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and cadmium. I think I have already discussed the most important health properties of garlic. So now let's turn to the practical part of this material. First of all, it is worth asking ourselves the question in what quantities should we consume garlic in order to reap widespread health benefits. Well, taking into account the scientific literature which I have referred to many times today, it can be recommended to consume fresh garlic in the amount of half to 2 cloves per day. It can be assumed that this is equivalent to about half to 1 gram of garlic powder. Although here I would add that granulated garlic sold as a powdered spice is not necessarily a good option, as long-term storage in this form can lead to the destruction of beneficial compounds. It is also important to chop or crush garlic well and wait a moment before consuming it. This is because it is only by disturbing its structure that the most valuable ingredient, allicin, is formed and released. I have repeatedly encountered the question of whether it is not enough to simply bite the garlic with your teeth. Personally, I believe that this is insufficient. This is due to two things. First, biting the garlic will not crush it as effectively as using a knife or grater. And second, it must take a while for the health-promoting compounds to be extracted. It seems that the time between biting the garlic and swallowing it is too short for the aforementioned process to be effective. Now, I would like to suggest to you how to serve garlic so that you can consume it in the right amounts. Here, I will add that it is good that garlic should not be subjected to heat treatment, since at elevated temperatures the destruction of health-promoting compounds occurs. You can add it in chopped or crushed form to a cooking dish, but for no more than 3 to 5 minutes. The first idea is to make a garlic paste. To prepare it, you will need 10 cloves of garlic, and 1 cup of oil. I prefer avocado oil or grapeseed oil in this case. In addition, you will also need 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, which you can replace with 2 tablespoons of vinegar, as well as a pinch of salt. Here I would add that if one would like to give a slightly more pungent flavor to such a paste, you can also add grated ginger to it. If I prepare a garlic ginger paste, then I reach for garlic and ginger in a 3:1 ratio. The way to prepare such a paste is very simple. First, we peel and crush garlic using a mortar, press, or blender. Then we add salt to it and add oil along with lemon juice or vinegar. Blend the whole thing until it reaches a uniform consistency. A paste made in this way will be an ideal option for sandwiches or ready-made meat dishes. The second way to use garlic is to prepare garlic milk. The ingredients for this drink are 1 glass of milk or a plant-based drink, such as almond drink, 5 cloves of garlic, and 1 to 2 teaspoons of honey. To prepare garlic milk, pour milk or plant-based milk into a saucepan and boil it for a few minutes. During this time, we peel and thoroughly crush garlic. Then we add it to the saucepan with the milk and simmer the whole thing for no more than 5 minutes. After this time, when the milk with garlic cools down a bit, we add honey and it is ready. Another way to smuggle garlic into your diet is to make garlic butter. The basic ingredients you will need are 1 cube of butter and 10 cloves of garlic. I also add a pinch of herbs such as basil, cilantro or oregano to enhance the flavor for health benefits. I start making garlic butter by peeling the garlic and pressing it through a press. Then I mix the butter with the garlic. While blending, I add the aforementioned basil, cilantro, and oregano. When the ingredients are thoroughly mixed, I leave the garlic butter at the room temperature for about 20 minutes so that it passes the aromas. After this time, I put it in the refrigerator. While discussing practical tips for using garlic, I would also like to give tips on how you can eliminate the smell of garlic from your mouth, because I know that it is what stands in the way of some people reaching for this spice. It usually helps to eat a raw apple, chew cloves, parsley leaves or mint, and sip it with fat milk or green tea. However, if someone is not convinced to use garlic in raw and fresh form, a sure solution is still to reach for preparations containing garlic extract. However, when choosing such products, it is important to pay attention to whether the manufacturer has stated the content of allicin, the main ingredient responsible for the health properties of garlic. If such information is missing, it is better to choose another product. Despite the fact that garlic is characterized by very broad health potential, this does not mean that everyone should reach for it, and certainly not in large quantities. People taking anticoagulant drugs should be careful. By this I mean, for example, warfarin, aspirin, ibuprofen or naproxen. This is because garlic can enhance the effect of these drugs, causing too much blood thinning. For the same reason, large amount of garlic should not be consumed by people who will undergo surgery in the near future or have recently undergone surgery. Another indication for caution is taking blood glucose lowering drugs and hypotensive drugs that lower blood pressure. And this is because garlic exhibits similar effects, and one must be careful that both taking the drugs and consuming large amounts of garlic do not lead to too significant a reduction in both glucose levels and blood pressure. This caution is especially true for those who consume garlic in the form of preparations. Talking about preparations, I will also mention right away that they are not recommended for people who struggle with liver failure as well as gastroenteritis. Given the wide range of health properties that garlic offers us, I believe that its place is not only on the kitchen shelf but also in the home medicine cabinet. Garlic is mostly looked upon as a mere side dish. In reality, however, it deserves much more recognition. I hope this video will encourage you to reach for this vegetable more often. And this is all for today's video. Thank you very much for your attention and see you next time.